Oh,
All righty. Welcome, everybody. My name is Stacy Carpool. I am the Executive Director with Bucks County Audubon Society. And welcome to July, which we have decided is going to be Butterfly Month because it's such a great time to be seeing butterflies and learning about them. So we have a variety of wonderful programs all around butterflies happening this month. In addition to our presentation tonight, which we're doing a virtual program as well as sort of an introduction to our local butterflies. This is then going to be followed up on that following Saturday, the 24th, with a butterfly count at Bucks Audubon, the Honey Hollow Environmental Education Center. Just to sort of see what kind of butterflies that we can find. You can do both the virtual intro and the in-person, or you can just do one or the other, but it should be lots of fun. That's on the 22nd. We also have a wonderful book club that runs our Nature Lovers Book Club, and they are, and I've now forgotten the title completely of the book that they're doing. I believe it's The Last Butterfly or something like that. Heidi, I'm sure will correct me if I got that wrong, but they're doing a butterfly book this month as well, and they're meeting virtually for right now. I just saw Heidi go off mute. Did I get it right, Heidi?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you so much, Stacy, for mentioning it. I appreciate it.
So that will also be on the 22nd, but it does meet on the fourth Thursday of each month, the book club. And they've been doing what, about 3.5 years now, right, Heidi? And
It's actually 5 years. We're on our 5th year.
oh, has it been that long? Wow. But it's going strong. They've just been reading amazing books. I always feel bad that I never even remotely get the books read in time. But it's a great program if you're interested in a fun book club. And then to sort of round out the month, we are actually going to be doing a viewing of the documentary Beauty on the Wing, which is all about monarch butterflies as well. And we're going to have the documentary creator and producer, I believe, there as well, who'll do a sort of an introduction, and then we'll do a viewing, and then we'll do a Q&A. This will all be virtual. That should be a lot of fun. That one's on the 31st at 4 o'clock. If you want more information, you can find all that information on our website, as well as registration links. So hopefully everyone will join us for that. And just in general, if you've never been out to Bucks Audubon, I encourage everybody to come. Our preserve in Solebury is lovely, especially this time of year. We've got hiking trails. You can come watch birds. You can hike the trails. You can play in the stream. And just have a great time. So we encourage everybody to come out and get involved and join us for more programs. So I'm going to now turn this over to one of our fabulous volunteers. Barbara Beck serves on the board of directors for Bucks County Audubon and is an amazing naturalist. And she's really gotten into pollinators and is part of our pollinator subcommittee, just doing really, really cool things. So I've heard a little bit about her trip, and it's amazing. So I think you're really going to enjoy it tonight. So Barbara, go ahead and take it away.
well, thank you so much for that introduction, Stacy. And thank you all for joining me tonight. Let me just share my screen and we can get started. All right, that is not what I wanted. Stop. I just have to start again. I'm sorry, Stacy. I have to start again.
That's not a problem. You're fine.
Okay, let me get it from here. There we go. Cross that one out and get it from here. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see the screen? Okay.
No, you have to reshare.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Share. Okay. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all very much for joining me tonight, and we're going to go on a wonderful journey to a very very special place in Mexico. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you'll take away something and you'll want to say, you know, I would love to help these monarchs do well. So we're going to cover a number of topics on this presentation. We'll go very little into the Mexican culture and its relationship with the monarch butterflies. We'll have to talk a little bit about butterfly migration. We'll talk about the discovery of the monarchs in Mexico and the sanctuaries themselves. Also, we'll go into predation because these butterflies, you would think after their long journey to Mexico, they would have a safe haven. But guess what? They have predators down there too. We'll talk a little about population trends and conservation efforts, and ultimately what you can do to help the monarch. But before we do that, let's just pause for a couple of minutes and just enjoy the miracle that is a monarch butterfly.
And then we're feeding it.
Well, I hope that got you all into the mood of the monarch and what a wonderful miracle that lovely little creature is. Well, in February of this year, I ventured to Mexico to see the overwintering monarchs. And when you think about it, the monarch is probably the first butterfly you might remember seeing as a child. You probably didn't realize that the orange and black fluttering insects connected you with a single tree growing 10,000 feet up in the mountains in central Mexico. Over time, you probably learned about their magnificent migration and the special relationship that you have with the monarch. So this presentation is about a journey I took to those mountains in Mexico to connect with the butterflies of my childhood and to learn what I could do to help these beauties. You can see that it's still highly in COVID time because we were wearing our masks all the time. The monarch in Mexico actually represents the souls of ancestors, or the people feel it's the souls of their ancestors returning to visit. And their arrival back to Mexico coincides with the Day of the Dead celebrations on November 1st and 2nd. It also coincides with the harvest time, and the local Indians call the monarch butterfly the harvester butterfly because they appear when it's time to harvest the corn. And the butterfly very much is symbolic with rebirth after death. So there is a strong association, and this relationship goes back, it goes back before the time of the Aztec culture. Let's just talk a little bit about the butterfly migration, and we're going to focus on the eastern branch of the monarchs, not the California and the western branch. The annual migration of the monarch is a very unique and amazing phenomena. The monarch is the only butterfly that is known to make a two-way migration, very much like birds do. And unlike other butterflies, the monarch can't take the cold in North America like some other butterflies can, either as pupa or as adults. They will stay over winter. The monarch uses kind of environmental clues to kind of tell it when it is time to travel south for the winter. And they use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel these very long distances. Some fly as far as 3,000 miles to reach their winter home. So let's just kind of take a look at kind of what happens in the fall and what happens in the spring. If we start here in the winter in the mountains outside of Mexico City, the monarchs start their northern migration in the spring, probably either late March or early April. The butterflies that have overwintered begin to lay eggs as they travel northward. This first generation probably only makes it to Texas or Oklahoma. It'll then take 3 or 4 more generations of monarchs until it gets to the northern points of where they will be at the end of summer. These monarchs that go north and lay eggs along the way only live about 2 to 6 weeks. They have really short lifespans. But the monarchs that end up here, the ones that are ready to travel south, that last super generation is known as the Methuselah generation. And it's known as that because these butterflies will make the way all the way to Mexico City, on the mountains of Mexico, arriving back around November. So they start around August to head south. They arrive back in November. They overwinter in Mexico, and then they leave in April, in late March or April, back north to Oklahoma, and that's where they make it to Texas or Oklahoma before they die. So monarchs, the decreasing day length and temperatures, along like with things like aging milkweed or loss of nectar sources, triggers the birth of that super generation, the Methuselah generation, and their epic migration. They live 8 times longer than their parents and grandparents, and up to 8 months, and travel 10 times further. So that's why they're called the Methuselah or the super generation. And they also, monarchs have to kind of time their spring and fall migrations to coincide with optimal habitat conditions, including nectar flowers, which they use for energy, and particularly milkweed for the caterpillars. Milkweed, as many of you or all of you may know, is the only food source for the caterpillars. If there's no milkweed, there are no monarchs. It's really that simple. In the 1980s, however, a powerful new tool came about whereby scientists can tell by studying monarch butterflies which area of the East Coast they came from. And that's because the milkweed that is native to different parts of the East Coast carry a slightly different type of toxin that the monarchs use to prevent predation. So scientists are actually able to now, when they test some monarch butterflies, tell whether they came from the Corn Belt area or from the Mid-Atlantic or even the Northeast. The monarchs, when they travel, like I said, about 3,000 miles. Can you imagine doing that, really not knowing where you can rest or where you can have your next meal? The sun is your guide. You probably travel up to 50 miles a day. And when it rains or it gets particularly cold, below 86 degrees, you're unable to fly. So, what about the discovery of the monarchs, of where they overwinter? Lepidopterists, those who study butterflies, have been watching migrations of fluttering monarchs since the 1850s. But it wasn't until 1930 when they were able to conclude with some degree of certainty that monarchs actually migrate south for the winter and come north in the early spring. And this fellow, Fred Urquhart, is the one who started to try and decide where do they go. And what he did was he set up a network of like 3,000 butterfly lovers scattered across North America. And the groups tagged monarchs in order to map their movements. And as time passed, Urquhart received reports of tagged butterflies turning up farther and farther south, first in Texas and then in northern Mexico. But his searches to actually find where they are always led him to some frustration. But in 1973, a businessman, Kenneth Brugert, who worked in Mexico City, told Urquhart of a strange phenomenon where he saw in a storm west of Mexico City in the mountains, he saw thousands of monarch butterflies being essentially pelted from the sky. So what he did is he worked together with Fred, and he started to explore the area, that mountainous area west of Mexico City, together with his wife. And on January 2nd, 1975, they discovered the winter home of the monarchs, which was high in the transverse belt. And it's about a 20 by 40 mile strip of mountains where hundreds of millions of monarch butterflies take refuge. And some of you, if you've been around long enough, might remember this photograph from the cover of National Geographic. This is Kenneth Bruger's wife, and this is the day. This is when they discovered where they overwintered. So this map here, this on your left, you see the state of Michoacan in Mexico, and that is where the butterfly sanctuaries, or the major butterfly sanctuaries, are. And Angangueo, which is right here, is the heart of the monarch sanctuaries. And that is where we were based on our trip when we went to Mexico. And I'll share a little bit about that lovely town with you. It's a municipality that's in the far eastern Michoacan state in this central Mexico. It's noted for its history of mining and its location for the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve. And it's located in very forested mountains. The town itself is nestled in a beautiful little canyon at about 8,400 feet. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And the population is only about 15,000 people. So this area that is bordered in red is the Biosphere Reserve. And all of these red boxes in here are the sanctuaries, the major butterfly sanctuaries that are identified. Millions of butterflies arrive here annually, but they only, as you can see, really inhabit a fraction of the forested areas. Presidential decrees in the 80s and 2000 to make it a World Heritage Site helped to make this a World Heritage Site and helped to start to preserve the area. This area, even though it is a World Heritage Site and a Biosphere Reserve, is still owned by the communities. And I'll mention that a little later. It's still community-based landowners private landowners and indigenous people. So you can see where the difficulty comes perhaps in preserving butterflies and where there may be conflicts with community interests. In terms of the sanctuaries, the ones that we visited are the El Rosario Sanctuary that has about 41% of the population of butterflies, and the Sierra Chinqua that has about 10. You can see Sierra Pelon has a lot as well, but that was further away from the town of Angangueo. So it was much more convenient to spend 3 days going to these two sanctuaries. And we went 2 days to El Rosario and 1 day to Sierra Chinqua. And as I said, Arangueo is a beautiful little town. This is the town nestled in the mountains at about 8,400 feet, a very colorful little place where it's very simple life. You will see little burros and donkeys walking up and down the street, as well as automobiles. This was our guide, Fernando, for the trip. And what he was showing us here in Angangueo is a beautiful long mural created by Arturo Estrada, talking about, that tells the story of the town from a mining town to now what is known as the butterfly town or the butterfly sanctuaries. It's really a very charming place. The journey to see the monarchs begins from our lovely little lodging. These lodgings that you will go to in Angangueo, most of them are not heated overnight, but they do have fireplaces in them. And while there are plenty of blankets, you should take along, if you do go there, you should plan on taking along some thermal underwear, just in case. So the journey to see them starts when you leave the hotels. You travel in these open trucks, and these are run by the locals. This is part of the tourism industry that helps support the community. And these open trucks will take you for about 30 to 45-minute ride up to into the mountains to see the butterflies. You can see it is really, really beautiful. This kind of gives you an idea of the little town we're going into, and we're going to make a right-hand turn further up to start to go up into the mountains. And this is the beautiful scenery that you will see when you are up there. And these will take us, these little vehicles will take us to about 10,000 feet. Depending on which sanctuary you go to, the ride could be 30 to 45 minutes. So you may think, okay, well, we're up at the sanctuary, but no, we still have 2 legs of the journey to go. When you arrive at the Rosario Sanctuary, the trucks drop us off. And as I mentioned, we visited 2 different sanctuaries. This is the larger of the 2. And the journey to see them still has 2 more legs to go. The first leg is on horseback. So once you get to the sanctuary, we get on our horses and we head up farther up the trail. The horses help to take us up on some of the steeper bits, because remember, we're in the mountains and we're still going higher. You can still see we're wearing our masks. The horseback ride, depending on where the monarchs are, because even though they're clustered in certain areas, sometimes they move a little bit during the day, but not much. But it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. So you would think that once we finish our horseback ride, we were ready to be there, but that's not the case. You then have to hike. And the hike can be anywhere from you know, the hike can be anywhere up to an hour, depending on where they are. So this was our intrepid group, and we traveled with Natural Habitat Adventures. They do a lot because they also are part of the World Wildlife Fund. They're the travel arm of the World Wildlife Fund. And they do a lot in this area to help with conservation efforts with the monarch. So you can see this is the type of forest that we're walking through. It is a beautiful forest of oyamel fir, and they're tantalizing hints of the butterflies. Some you'll see flying around before you get there. Some will have died. You see butterflies on the path as well. The temperatures in this area range from 32 to 59 degrees. And if the temperature is lower, the monarchs have to use their fat reserves. So the humidity here in the oyamel forest assures that the butterflies won't dry out because they'll be there for a few months. And for each of our visits to the butterflies, we were probably anywhere from 10,300 to 11,000 feet in altitude. So you can imagine there's a lot of panting. If you're not used to hiking at altitude, I know I was panting a lot and taking pretty slow steps. So finally, you get to see what look like clumps of I don't know what hanging from these trees, but these are clusters of monarch butterflies. You're not really sure what you're seeing, but as you get closer, you see they are clusters. They look like these brown, it looks like trees are coated with all this brown material, but here you can see a few peaks of orange coming through. And if you get closer still, when they're active, you see even more. So here's a closer up view of these coatings, trees literally coated with monarch butterflies. And it's just really fascinating to see these. But what really gets fascinating is when they start to move. As the day progresses, and if the temperatures get warmer, they do this. They start to open up their wings. They start to fly about. You can see the whole tree is just covered with them. Here is another little clip. This was from produced by Natural Habitat Adventures. They ask for silence when you're up in these areas, so you can just enjoy the butterflies, and sometimes you can hear them fluttering, especially when they're large groups like this. There is a very neat phenomena that happens. Let me just move on there. If you think it's easy taking a photograph of a butterfly, I challenge you to do it. It's certainly not easy, hence this photograph here. But one of the phenomenal things when watching the monarchs is if they're all clustered in the trees, and sometimes something just triggers them, the warmth, or it gets warm enough, and they literally start to fly as a group. And it looks like a waterfall, like a cascade of butterflies flowing off the trees in massive numbers. It's really a phenomenal sight. We never saw that quite to that degree, but we saw lots of um, uh, butterflies flying in groups and all, because we would spend like 2, sometimes 3 hours at each site to watch them. And as the day gets warmer, you'll see more activity. If it's a cooler, cloudier day, there is less. This is one of our people on our trip, but I just want to show you this because this is so lovely. We would take butterflies and put them in our hands and warm them up. And once they got warmed up, they would take off. No. Sometimes they'd give you a kiss before they flew off. So these butterflies, as you can see, are just, and that's why I really say this experience is magical. Once in a while, if you're lucky, you'll see a tagged butterfly on the that has fallen to the ground. The locals will actually, after the tourists are away, they'll walk along the ground to find these wings with tags on them, and they sell them to the tourists. And I did buy this wing because I wanted to send these the tag IDs to Monarch Watch so that they could let the person who tagged them know that their butterfly was found in Mexico in the El Rosario Sanctuary. I wish they would tell the people that found the tags where they came from in the United States, but they don't do that. Of course, when you're in Mexico, there is so much, especially in a part of the region like this, you really get to see and meet the local people. You also will have great food, and you can imagine that the guacamole and the peppers are probably the best you ever had, but there's so much good food. You also interact with the locals, and this gentleman, was a heavy cartload of firewood that he was taking down, bringing down, and our guide tried to move this, and it was quite hard to do. But when we were walking back one day, our guide also took us to a stream to see the Mexican axolotl. And the Mexican, there, you can just see the little shadowy figures here. So I had to get a better figure of it off the internet. But high in the sanctuaries, in some of the freshwater streams, you will see the axolotl. And this is also known as the Mexican walking fish. It's a neotenic salamander. It's related to the tiger salamander. And although it's colloquially known as a walking fish, it's actually not a fish at all, but it's an amphibian. It is also critically endangered. And hence the guides won't tell people generally where they can find them because they don't want people going there and possibly taking them. I was lucky enough when I was there to have a birthday. So as part of the culture, they also dressed me up in monarch wings, blindfolded me, and let me go for the piñata.
1, 2, 3. Dale, dale, dale. No pierdas el tino. Bájasela, baja. Eso, muy bien. Almost there. Bájasela. Eso, muy bien. Okay.
Everybody had their turn at the piñata. None of us really cracked it open. It was incredibly hard. So the guide had to crack it open for us. it was a lot of fun and lighthearted spirit that evening. So I mentioned to you, we talk a bit about monarch predation. You know, after 3,000 miles, as I said before, you would hope these butterflies have a safe haven, but lo and behold, as scientists began to more closely study monarch roosts, they found an extraordinarily high mortality upon the monarchs. Of the 37 species of birds in the region, only 2 of them, the black-headed grosbeak and the black-backed oriole, are primary monarch predators. These 2 species feed twice daily at the roosts in mixed flocks that can number from 5 to more than 60 birds, and they annually consume several million monarchs in this area. Both birds have very different ways of avoiding being poisoned by the toxins that the monarch butterflies contained. The grosbeaks, they have a tolerance in their digestive tract to the toxins. Grosbeaks do eat the entire abdomen. So you know, if you see just the upper part of the butterfly on the ground, chances are it was a black-headed grosbeak that ate that. The orioles, however, and you can see they have a very different bill. They avoid poisoning by not eating the cuticle around the abdomen. What they do is they slit the abdomen open and then they eat the insides of the butterfly, the soft bits. Lo and behold, these 2 birds alone cause more than 60% of monarch fatalities, killing approximately 7 to 44% of the total population. So if you have 1 6-acre colony, for example, which was studied, the birds ate an average of 15,000 butterflies a day, over 2 million for the season. And in that little area, that constituted 9% of the roosts. Here is a video I just wanted to show. It shows you them predating. Both the black-backed and the black-headed oriole are in this video, and they are predating on the birds, on the butterflies together in the same, let's just move this on a little, there we go. Let's move this on a little bit. Here you can see the birds just literally picking off the butterflies and having a little feast of them. Here we have both birds. This looks like the oriole up here and the grosbeak here. But it's amazing how much damage these birds will do to these colonies. And here's a good, you know, photograph of what the colonies look like when you approach them in the OML fir forests. Let's get on to the next slide. But there's another predator too. And this one is the black-eared mouse. And the black-eared mouse also preys upon the monarchs. An individual mouse consumes an average of 37 butterflies each night, and they feed preferentially on easily accessible butterflies. So those are the ones that are near the ground, or butterflies that might have died, but they're not dried out yet. Their abdomen is still moist. Over the winter season, these mice can consume a total of 4 to 6% of the population, which translates into at least 1 million butterflies each winter in a 6-acre roost. So the monarchs have a lot going against them. So let's take a look at what the population trends are. The population trends in 2021, the monarch winter numbers are in decline, a decline of 26%. So here, this goes from 1991 to 2019, you can see there are ups and downs, but basically the trend is going down. At this winter's, the population here in 2019, that particular winter's population covered a little over 6 hectares, and a sustained population of 6 hectares is needed for a monarch recovery. So we've got kind of good news and bad news. The bad news is there is a decline in butterfly populations, and that's due still to some illegal logging. A lot of illegal logging has been stopped, but there is still elements of that going on. And that's because I said, the land is not owned by the biosphere, it's owned by private landowners and all. And they still have a right to really do on their land what they wish. The loss of host and nectaring plants like milkweed, this is huge, particularly like in the Corn Belt in the US, where large-scale farming uses heavy use of neonics, particularly what we know and don't love as Roundup. Climate change too, because of unseasonable extreme weather. If they're flying down in the fall and they run into these huge storms that we've been seeing lately, that doesn't bode well for them. And of course, habitat destruction in the US and Canada. And by habitat destruction, that means the loss of the host, nectaring plants, and the milkweed. So land in the biosphere, which is communally owned, local buy-in is critical. So what's the good news? The good news is overwintering sites are currently protected from logging by government decree. It's still an issue, and economics is the crux of the problem. Lumbering for the locals is a very, very lucrative. And when you think of it, tourism only lasts for 3 months. So to create more options, projects have been established outside of the tour season by NGOs and other groups, such as craft making, fish farming, and tree nurseries. I mentioned the World Wildlife Fund. They are also leasing trees from the local landowners. They are known as ejidos, by providing similar financial compensation that they would have had from logging. The conservation of the monarch is a shared responsibility between Mexico, the US, and Canada, because all of these sites have significant populations of monarchs at different times of the year. As I mentioned, the monarchs lay eggs exclusively on milkweed plants. And also they need wildflowers for nectar sources. So what can we as individuals do to help the monarch? Well, definitely plant native milkweed. That will help ensure that generations of monarchs can continue, because that's the host plant for the caterpillars. Do buy plant natives. You don't have to have your whole garden done with milkweeds and natives, but incorporate them into your garden. And even if all you have is a balcony or a patio, a container plant, if you have a nice container plant filled with like the orange butterfly weed, that makes such a difference. And buy organic when and where you can. Let's help to try and change the way farming is in America. There are a lot of efforts trying to do that. There are 12 species of native milkweeds, so you're bound to find something that suits both the kind of habitat area that you have and also your landscaping. I have a lot of these butterfly weeds because they don't grow very high. They grow maybe 2 feet. They're very contained. And if you plant them in mass, they make a beautiful summer show, and they incorporate well with your other landscaping plants. I have a lot of these mixed in with bee balm, with the red scarlet bee balm, and it's just stunning to look at. And then you also have like your swamp milkweeds and common milkweeds that grow taller and leggier. But if you have the land and you have the area, it's a good place. The National Wildlife Federation, if you go on their website, they will tell you a lot more about it. And in closing, I want to thank you all very much for participating and letting me share this wonderful journey with you. So you can kind of be an activist as well. So I'm trying to get back, Stacy, I'm trying to get back to you. Let me stop the share.
You stop sharing. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And open to any questions that anyone may have. I guess you can just come off mute and ask the question since it's not a huge group. I hope the presentation resonated with you, and that you learned something from it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Okay, here's my question. Hi, everyone. A fabulous speaking by you. I live in the Quakertown area, and there are many farms and there are many fields, and there was a lot of milkweed growing along the side of the road. Over the last 2 days, all of the area along the road has been cut down. Now, they've taken down everything. That would be the milkweed, that would be any wildflowers, anything. Is there any place we can go to sort of curtail that kind of random destroying of milkweed?
Yeah, that's very good. I live in Quakertown as well. And
Okay.
and I noticed on one corner I had seen beautiful milkweed, and I said, oh, good, some milkweed. And today I was driving by and it was all gone.
Yes.
So actually, I'm going to bring this up because I also sit on the board of the Richland Township Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
And I know they're looking to stop mowing in some areas,
Yes,
possibly
sure.
to save on costs.
Right.
But I'm going to bring this up because I wasn't aware. I saw that little patch there, but if you've seen it more generally on roadsides, I'm sure there's something that we could do collectively to kind of help stop that practice.
Yes, yes.
Or do it early in the season and then maybe very late in the season
I
again.
honestly don't see any reason to do it, period. I mean, I just,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Maria.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm really interested in going to see the Monarchs. And when would be the best time of the year? You went in February?
That's when, like with Natural Habitat Adventures, if you go on their website, they run their trips in February, early March, and I think also in January.
I see.
But that's when they run them.
Okay.
Before
Also,
they take off.
yeah, you're talking about Tyler Park. Over at Tyler Park where the college is, the college used to have a monarch butterfly sanctuary little area that they planted the milkweed and they had, now this year they're not doing it anymore. I don't know why. It's been there for years and then they stopped it this year.
Oh, geez. I'm glad, and Heidi, maybe, I don't know if Heidi's still on. We have a little, we have our way stations up, Heidi?
We way stations. We have the signs up around Bucks Audubon. Yes, we do.
Okay, okay, because we're thinking of having some way stations, but it's, yeah, I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just economics. And because once you have like a pollinator garden or with milkweeds and all, there is some maintenance involved in it. But I don't know why. All I could suggest is ask the college why. Maybe if there's an interest from the public on having more of them, you know, more of these places active, like even in Quakertown, they have a pollinator garden, but it looks like it hasn't been taken care of in 2 years. So I know who I'm going to talk to about that. So
I'll
be
definitely-
vocal.
Yeah,
Be
yeah,
vocal.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, gotta contact the college and see what's up.
Yeah, exactly. If they know people are interested and enjoy that, that might be all the pressure they need.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
jump in real quick and just say that I know that you're gonna go to the Richboro Parks and Rec, but it's probably helpful everybody calls. It's great that you're gonna talk about it, but I think more pressure and interest and phone calls to the different townships officials, letting them know what your interests are is really important. They
Yeah.
really want to hear from the residents. They want to know what's important to you, and the more calls that can be made, the more helpful, the more likely we could change things around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Barbara. That was a really beautiful presentation. Thank you so much.
You are so
Thank
welcome.
you. I have a nice big hillside of milkweed and it's in full bloom. And yes, it's wonderful. And I'm waiting. When I can't remember when they usually arrive.
They should be here now.
Yeah,
They should be here now.
not seeing any. What does that mean?
Well, you saw that the population in Mexico was down 26% this year in the 2021 season. And we're going to start seeing that. I only saw 2 monarchs this year so far.
Yeah.
2.
I've seen
And
one. Yeah.
yeah.
I usually get monarchs and viceroys, and I'm not seeing any.
Do you, are you at all participating in Monarch watches? They just have like a checklist every day. You just see how many monarchs have arrived or that you see. And then at the end of the season, you submit that checklist to them. It gives them an idea.
Is that an Audubon site or?
Nope, it's called monarchwatch.org.
I'll look at that and see if
And
it's in a neighborhood.
yeah, yeah, they rely on a lot of people submitting data to them
Mhm.
from their local communities. But it's really depressing. I've only seen a couple.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Oh, Heidi just posted that in the chat, monarchwatch.org.
Okay. Thank you.
Just put it in there. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you all so very much. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed putting it together, and I'm glad that it was so well received. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. It was really, really great. I love the videos. I love your pictures. It was just wonderful.
Good.
Makes
Yeah.
everyone travel now.
Thank you, great.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I guess that's it, Stacy, for.
You're good.
Mhm.